So I call this next activity same different. And that means that you're going to be looking for similarities and differences between some pictures that I will give you. The fun part of this activity is that you will work with the partner and have a different picture than your partner. To do this activity, we have to make sure that you can remember question words. So what are some ways that we begin to ask a question? Keywords.
In English?
In English, yes.
Do you have?
Do you have? Good.
Who?
Who?
Where?
Where?
What?
What?
How many?
How many? When?
Next to when? Next to what?
Good. Now the trick, however, is that with this game, you have to pose the question in a way that the answer is yes or no. So your goal then, together as partners, is to ask one another questions, taking turns, to find 5 differences. When you found your 5 differences, raise your hand, and then I'll see how the rest of the class is doing and give you further direction. Okay? So you're going to have a green picture, and don't let your partner see it.
Okay.
You can have a pink picture. You can have a green picture. And you can have a pink picture. And you can have a green and a pink. Great. So, partners, are you ready?
Yes.
So we'll do this time in English, of course.
You want to start?
Okay. Do you see a car?
Yes. Is there a house?
Yes. Do you have a tree?
Yes. Do you see a sun?
No.
Do you see a stop sign?
No. Do you have a man in the car?
No.
Or?
Do you see flowers?
No.
Oh, we got it. Okay.
So this kind of an activity, when you do it as a native speaker, isn't very challenging. It can be fun, and you can look for differences that are a little bit more intriguing, perhaps. But when you do it in a second language, and when you have a more limited vocabulary, it is indeed challenging. Would you agree?
Yeah.
And I think when I asked you to do it with thinking that you had a more limited vocabulary in English, you realize that as a native speaker to come down to that level is a challenge. That's what you have to learn at the giving it stage. You have to learn to be able to communicate to your beginner level students at that level, speaking more slowly, more precisely, with fewer words. So can you think about ways that we might be able to adapt this kind of activity to other situations?
I think it was really good the way that you asked for 5 things at a time. It shows that there's scaffolding in the activity, and that the more proficient students are able to move ahead without having to wait and be bored, whereas the other students are still feeling success because they are able to reach the first kind of benchmark. So I think that was good.
So that would be an example of differentiation, that you create an activity in which everyone in the class can participate at their own level. And when we go back to choice and chance, did you notice anything about choice, chance, or self-paced?
I think it was self-paced, and I think that there was choice because you could ask any question, and chance as well because the other person didn't know what was going to be asked. So.
And so there isn't really a winner to this activity. And sometimes you can have very strong language level students who just aren't asking the right questions. So that adds a kind of fun challenge and to the activity instead of just focusing on the language learning. Okay. Any other observations? Can you think of what kind of materials would you need to prepare in order to do this activity in your classes? And what would you have to think that your students already know in order to comfortably do this?
Well, for sure, I mean, you'd have to have 2 different pictures. that were, you know, had similarities and differences, but you'd also have to have enough in there so that once you got to the 5 and you kept moving up, so you have to plan for that and make sure you had enough so that the activity could go on as long as you needed it to.
Right, and there are in fact 20 differences, so that students can progress at whatever level they're at and still be involved in the same kind of activity. Good. Other observations?
You would also need to make sure that they know how to form the questions, because without that they're totally stuck. Although, and also that they have the right vocabulary, because they can do vocabulary without questions if necessary.
Right.
At the same time, though, they could be practicing different language learning strategies such as circumlocution, trying to communicate without, even if they don't know the word, if they know words kind of around it, they could be using that skill as well. So.
Good. So in order to prepare these activities, what I've done is I've drawn one picture and photocopied it. And then I make differences on the two pictures. So in this picture, there's a house, there's a road, there's a tree, there are children. And those are the same in both pictures. Then to one, as you can see, I added the sun, and to the other, I added clouds and rain. To one, I added a happy face, and to the other, a sad face. To one, there are 2 windows and no door, and here there's a window and a door. One has one more apple than the other. So, oh, and the other one has birds. So those are ways that you don't have to be a great artist in order to do. However, you do have to have a little bit of art skill if you want to be able to create this in a context where the vocabulary that you've been covering would in fact be naturally used. What could some of those contexts be?
If you're studying food, you could do a grocery store.
Good.
You could do a map of a town with images of sites that you had placed on it.
Great.
Or on a menu, different food items.
Okay. Good. Because you could have 2 menus, and what does yours say and what does yours? Good. Other ideas?
Catalogs for clothing, if you're doing
Good.
clothing. A map of a zoo, if you're doing animals.
Good.
So I think there's lots of possibilities.
Right. And today with the internet, it's easy enough to find some of those images and just creatively put them together. Okay, great.